Hey everybody, wait for it here, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about the Sharia law and the anti-Sharia marches that were met by counter-protests. Now, according to this, it says that demonstrators marching in opposition of Sharia law were met by protesters advocating interfaith harmony and tolerance across different parts of the country. And what didn't really make sense to me was that it seems that the people doing anti-Sharia marches are marching for something different than the people are protesting. All of the signs and everything that I saw from the protesters of the marches seem to be about, we stand with our Muslim neighbors, and I'm a kind, peaceful Muslim, and I stand with Islam, and it seems very different because their point of view is talking about the people. But what I didn't understand was black-clad protesters just arriving, trying to drown out all march on Sharia speakers. They're basically they don't want to hear the argument that these anti-Sharia marches are actually saying. They just are like, oh, you don't like Sharia? Oh, you must be Islamophobic and racist, and you just hate Muslims. And their attacks are so much on the ideas, not the actual principles that these marchers are standing for. And it doesn't really make sense that, I don't really understand the appeal of a lot of these protests where there's just back and forth, just yelling and stuff going on. And it doesn't really seem to accomplish very much. If people are just drowning each other out, it doesn't help either group. The march against Sharia protesters were positioned on a hill just outside the state capitol. They yelled death to Muslims and go home. Did they really yell that? Did they yell death to Muslims? If they're yelling death to Muslims and go home, then they are in the wrong. But if they're actually marching for just anti-Sharia, then I see no problem with it. Now, I think it's important we define what is Sharia. And like this definition here of it says that Sharia is an Arabic word derived from the root word shara, which is a verb that primary meaning means the act of making something like a pathway plain, clear, or manifest, which it doesn't really seem like this is what's going on. It doesn't seem very plain or clear what these people want with Sharia being implemented. If you guys remember this clip,
But do you know what Sharia law is? Me praying 5 times a day is Sharia. That people talk about Islam without knowing anything about it. And they're willing to completely negate any of my rights as a human being, as a woman, as a person with agency, simply because they have an idea about what my faith is about. Excuse me, Islam to me is the most feminist religion, right? We got equal rights well before the Europeans. We don't take our husbands' last names because we ain't their property. Right? We were given the right to own land. The fact is, what is culture is separate from what is faith. Sharia, it says you follow the law of the land on which you are on.
It's pretty clear they actually want something to happen with Sharia. It more than just a personal belief system. If you look further down in this Sharia defined picture thing here, it says that, explain, the Sharia means a religion or way of belief, a practice in respect of religion. Thus it is made clear that Sharia itself is not a governmental law. It is a set of guidelines with respect to following one's religion, which is to be done by everyone's own free will. The word itself defines it as something that cannot be imposed on someone else, which makes no sense. It just confuses me all the more, because this does not bring any clarity whatsoever to Sharia. What is Sharia? Now, the other main problem I have with this is that Sharia could just be a front. It could be something that they just want implemented and then build on it later as it's like a Trojan horse of law, Sharia law being brought into a country, and then they're kind of like, oh, well, this part's part of Sharia and this part's part of Sharia, and I wouldn't even know. There's even disagreements between Muslims as far as what Sharia law means. Like this article here says, just opinion about these laws vary greatly within each of these traditions. Muslims around the world fall on a vast spectrum when it comes to how to interpret Sharia, much like the Jewish halakha which influence everything from a person's diet to clothing they wear. Sharia is a set of laws that cover all aspects of a Muslim's life, imbuing even mundane acts with a touch of divine significance. According to the American Muslim scholar, there were 5 main things that Sharia law aimed to preserve: life, learning, family, property, and honor. From these main goals come laws about things like marriage, eating, worship, financial transactions, and many other essential aspects of living in a community. But that scares people because there's no set definition of what Sharia is. It's vaguely termed, caring about things that our government system that has already been set up cares about those things as well. We have a Department of Education, we have colleges, we have family courts and legal systems and things about property ownership, and like we have Bill of Rights. We have things that have been established over time. We don't need a religion to say that we need certain things. These are things that people can choose to have or not. According to that past thing about Sharia, people can choose if they want these things or not. And it shouldn't be something that is forced on non-believing people either, because these are part of the Muslim faith. These are religious things. I think what's important to keep in mind is to understand that a lot of the religious beliefs came about a long time ago, when the time was very different. It's an important thing to understand the background of the creators of these beliefs.
Migrated from site to site, struggling to live off their flocks in the harsh desert. To survive in such a place, Arabs depended on the support of their tribe. The tribe protected them from harm, not only from the desert, but also from the endless raids and vendettas launched by other tribes.
Social life in pre-Islamic Arabia was grim, and Muhammad was born into a time of violence, turmoil, and despair.
But he was also aware that the old values of charity and community were breaking down in Mecca. Muhammad was deeply respectful of the religion of his ancestors. He was a frequent visitor to the Kaaba and attempted to lead a life of fairness and respect for all.
We don't have lots and lots of information about the Prophet Muhammad before he was called to be a prophet, but that information which the tradition has passed down indicates somebody who was, on the one hand, very good at what he did, a caravan manager. His nickname, among other things, was Al-Amin, the trustworthy person.
He was very soon known as the righteous one, because he was known for being a fair kind of man, a man who was concerned with social issues.
As well as somebody who was efficient. He was seen as somebody who had strong leadership qualities.
He was good-looking. He had a piercing eyes that seemed to go into people's souls, a smile. He sometimes looked sad. And a very sort of distinctive way of walking.
All jokes aside, though, I don't really understand the pros and cons of Sharia law being implemented in a Western society. A lot of people are against it, and a lot of people are for it. It's difficult to know exactly what type of laws they would try to implement, and whether or not these are just laws that they can just call on when it benefits them in court. And these are some of the major concerns I think a lot of people face about having Sharia law being part of the system, being able to pull pieces of law that will benefit themselves based on their belief system. But anyways, let me know in the comments if you guys have anything that really adds to the discussion as far as whether or not you are for it or against it. Anyways, again, as always, thanks for watching, and I will see you all next time.